Every day for about a year.
Like a McDonald's model.
And we have been talking about the different things that we, one, our passions, but also the different things that we could possibly do together. And what we noticed quickly was that while there was a large amount of work being done, and particularly in the areas of sports, inclusiveness in sports cultures, we noticed that a lot of work had been centered on the needs of young people. So part of what we wanted to do was to provide a service in response to those needs. But how did we end up in Chicago? I think it's an important thing. So we ended up in Chicago partially because of Wade's relationship to the Commissioner of Health here, who instantly connected us with partners who are in this room, and thought that it would be a good idea for us to work with those who are already doing work on the ground. We thought it was true because we did not want to enter into a community without having access to those who are already doing the work. The camps will travel, 4-day comprehensive sports camps that will travel around the country. And what we don't want to do is to move into communities without first having to engage the actual bodies there, people who are already doing the work. So the folks that you will hear from today are those individuals, organizations that are already doing the work, have access to young people, and actually can teach us a lot about the communities of which we're working in the project.
Yeah. I think from a sports perspective, as a person who wasn't out when he was playing sports, one of the big things that this camp does is it puts queer youth in the same space as straight identified youth, and shows that they can exist in those spaces in unity and in fellowship. And we intentionally chose the sport of basketball because we wanted a sport that was open to all genders and sexualities, and basketball definitely does that. I just got off the show, but we were talking about the issue of how do you redefine masculinity, right? So this sports camp will help to do that, because there'll be youth who may have quote-unquote masculine privilege. There'll be other youth that may be easily identified as gay, but all of these youth have the right to access sports. And I think also to give these young people access to athletes in a way that they've never had access to before is extremely powerful.
And again, we also are intended to, I should say this up front, the camp is going to be free for young people. And we want young people who would otherwise not have access to a camp like this because of the possibility that they may not be able to afford it. We also wanted to do something that's proactive, a proactive solution to a range of issues that our young LGBTQ people face, and we face a number of them. So rather than talking about the very real issues that they face, the increasing numbers of young people who are homeless on our streets, the increasing number of young people who are dying by their own hand to suicide, we wanted to be able to come up with proactive solutions and do things in communities where we know young people need access to things like this. In partnership, again, with individuals and groups who are already doing the work. So what we want to do is to invite up a few of our partners to offer a few.
I'm Zach Stafford. I'm from Lurie Children's Hospital, the Center of Gender, Sexuality, and HIV Prevention here in Chicago. How we became involved with Wade and Darnell was I was in New York meeting with them, and Darnell brought up this camp. And it was at the same time that we were planning the Safe Space Day, which is happening right now across this whole building. We thought it was like the most obvious moment to like really use synergy and join together because athletics is becoming a huge conversation here in the LGBT community around bullying and kind of building spaces where everyone's kind of included. So we started talking with them and tried to figure out a way for them to be here, which you will see throughout the day that the You Belong camp will be having a preview on the gym floor where there will be a basketball and track and field workshop. So we thought it'd be great. Because we're in May. It was the perfect moment. This is really good. To kind of launch our day and give enough time for youth to get really excited and buzzed about joining the camp. So after today, I think people will be able to register and all that. And that will also, You Belong to be here at Halstead, which is why we did the Safe Space Day on Halstead. In regards to what our center will be doing for the day or the weekend for the camp, we will be organizing the medical teams that will be present for the whole weekend. So we have pediatricians and some other medical folks that will be present that will be able to help with immediate injuries and also transporting anyone that does get hurt, if anyone does get hurt, to our hospital downtown. And also, specifically, my role will be helping organize the housing for the weekend. All athletes will be staying on campus at DePaul University within the residence halls there. That's where I did my undergrad at, and I was an RA, so it's perfect to be able to go back and do that. So we're really excited about that. Our center is continuing to do ways to work with them, and we've got this.
Yeah, welcome to the Center on Halstead. My name is Tom Elliott. I'm the Director of Public Relations here. And this is such a great opportunity to partner with so many of these outstanding organizations for the first Safe Space Day. And in Chicago, we're thrilled to have them here. A lot of the great thing about this camp is that so many LGBTQ youth face discrimination and isolation, and stay in the closets when they're for a long time, which causes them depression and suicidal thoughts, and so it's really great to be able to have a community, a sense of community where people can come and get skills on leadership development and be empowered to make a difference in their community. I can say from personal experience, I know that belonging to a team or a community of having friends that are supportive is important for individual growth, and so that's why this is such an important part of making a difference for young people and in the community at large. So thank you so much
Wade, for getting engaged from very early on in that process, and I'll thank you for being here in Chicago. I also want to thank our friends at the Center on Halstead for all the work that you guys do, and definitely our partners at Bowie Children's Hospital. Just very briefly, back in August of 2011, Mayor Emanuel released Healthy Chicago, which is our public health agenda for the city. And then in March of 2012, we've released the LGBT Community Action Plan, which is the addendum to our public health agenda to really what can you do as a city to close the disparities gap between the LGBTQ community and the rest of the community here in Chicago when it comes to health outcomes. When my really good friend Wade started talking to me about You Belong, it was clearly a good fit, because in that LGBT Community Action Plan, one of our key strategies is to creating more and more environments of inclusion and inclusivity for our LGBTQ youth, and this type of initiative is really kind of goes right into that core message of creating those environments of inclusion. So we're really excited we're here, and on behalf of all of us at the Chicago Department of Public Health and on behalf of Mayor Emanuel, we're really excited that this is happening.
Wes here, who has been working with us to make
From
sure
the very, very beginning.
I mean, just taking all of our phone calls, making sure that we actually have access to young people and really helping us to frame this in such a way that it can be impactful in their lives. So we're really thankful for the Center on Hospital. We're really thankful for the Children's Hospital. We're really thankful for the city's Department of Public Health and all of our partners here. So we'd love to take questions if you have any.
Well, can you talk about how the funding is going to work and what resources you need from the community?
We need a lot of resources from the community. This is yes, sure. So we're intending for, not intending, the camp will be free. It will be free to young people, which means we need to raise funds for that. So between Wade and I, we don't sleep because we're reaching out to a lot of folk to ensure that young people can come. We're raising money. We're looking to raise by July about $50,000 to $75,000 for the launch of the festival.
Yeah, so if you know of any partners who would want to sponsor any aspects of the camp, or whether it's pay for housing, whether it's provide clothing and or food, those are things that aren't actual funds in themselves, but they end up paying for something which comes out of our actual budget. So that's something that we're definitely welcome to. So if you know of anyone, please, call.
We'll talk about how the structure is going to work then in terms of the budget. So are kids coming from all over the country or mainly Chicago?
Chicago.
Yeah, so it was intentional that we wanted to really focus our efforts on Chicago.
So the way that this will work, so when camps travel across the country, the idea is to ensure localized communities can come. So this won't only happen in Chicago, this will happen again a quarter from now, 4 months from now in another part of the country. We're thinking the West Coast.
Yeah, in California, and then our third one is going to be in Newark, actually Darnell's hometown.
How many kids are you expecting to take part in this?
We're looking for about 50 to 65 young people.
And that's ranging. And it may change depending on the sports and the location of it.
What if you get more people that want to do it than that?
Well, we're going to kind of do like a first come, first served basis, but we definitely want to make sure that there is probably a 70-30 mix of queer youth to straight ally youth.
And also, because of the status to young people ratio, we want to ensure that we have a proper ratio for student support. I mean, that's really the biggest part of it. So we want to have at least a ratio of 1:7 so that we can give them as much support as necessary.
And the big issue is, well, it's our first camp, so we don't want to spread ourselves so thin that we really can't have an impact.
In the age group?
It's 14 to 24.
And that's really important too, and that's also one of the conversations we've had at Tim and so in our other lives, as if we don't have multiple things we do. We work with LGBTQ young people every day. And what we're discovering in New York, and I think this thing is the same here, is that there are a lot of young people who are in the older age bracket, from about 18 to 24, who are still lacking services and supports, who are also, many of them lacking lack of resources and connections to systems that can help them, and many of them are on the streets. So it was really important for Tim and the center here, as well as ourselves, to ensure that we're serving those most marginalized populations.
I think it's also important to note that when someone has a trajectory, a particular young athlete, to sort of be an athlete in a sort of regular situation, and yet their coming out process or their closetedness or being kicked out of home by your parents interrupts that process, that some of those young people, because of depression, suicidal ideation, turn to the streets or drugs. And so I think, it's a way to begin to build all the way back and an opportunity for young people to see that, hey, they can still continue their interest in sports and athleticism without that being interrupted, and have support of people in the athletic community. I myself was a varsity basketball coach when I taught high school in DC, and so that was really important for them to even see an out basketball coach at a high school in Washington, D.C., but also realizing a lot of the challenges that came with that as well. So I think there's a lot of work to be done. And because our population here at Center on Halsted spans from 13 to 24, that age bracket really does sort of fit the range of young people that we work with here.
One of the things that we also wanted to do is to emphasize that this is sports and leadership. So that we're partnering sort of the development of the body, which is really in line with a lot of initiatives from the White House down to the city, with also the development of the spirit and sort of the spiritual well-being of the young person, so that they themselves can leave a camp not only knowing how to become, or if they're trained to be better athletes, but advocates in their communities. I'm not an athlete, so I'll be learning how to be an athlete. But we want our young people also to walk away having a better sense of self and community, and also knowing how to navigate communities and utilize their own skills and power to change the communities that they're part of.
What sports will be part of the Chicago program?
On the Safe Space Day today, it's basketball and track and field, but for the camp that's happening in July, it's just basketball.
Okay. And will you be working with mentors in professional sports or intramural sports here in Chicago?
So we're partnering with the Chicago Sky, and we're also in talks with the Gay and Lesbian Hall of Fame that just launched out here. They were actually here earlier, and also the Chicago Men's Sports Association. So we're really trying to keep some connected roots to people who are in the Chicago area. And also, they're the experts, like this is something that we want to do, but we want to bring in partners who are actually here in the city who know the population.
Of course, we love the challenge that Chicago Bulls get involved as well.
We are working to get some Chicago Bulls. I'm actually in talks with the NBA now. The NBA will definitely be involved. I don't know if I can get any Bulls players, but there'll definitely be some NBA players here. So that's very, very exciting. Any other questions?
Thank you all.
Thank you all so much for coming. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.